Hi, folks, in the Cobb TV studio with Cobb Chairman Mike Boyce. And when we last talked, Chairman, you were getting ready to fly overseas. You're back now. How was the trip?
Well, it's to be expected. As you'll see from the pictures, they spent a lot of time with kids and also doing some manual labor. When I mentioned at our last video session that you said, well, you don't know what you're going to do when you get over there, that's right. You just show up there and they find things for you to do. Spent a lot of time one day working with some kids that are in prison, and also some older people that that have some issues that'll be there for a while. But it sort of reminds me. Yesterday, or I think maybe on Tuesday, I went to the 10th anniversary of our DUI court, and they don't have provisions like that in Romania, where they have accountability courts, where people who really their problems won't be addressed or solved in prison. You can't prison your way, as District Attorney Vic Reynolds said during the ceremony the night of the graduation of the Juvenile Peer Court. You can't put people in prison and expect to solve a public health problem. So I'm really, really proud again of what this county has done with the diversity, with our accountability courts, our diversion courts, to take people who don't belong in prison or in jail and put them somewhere where we can help them, give them counseling, and make them again productive members of society. And I go on these trips to remind me of really how great we have it in America and how fortunate we are to live in this great land.
And we should clarify, this was a trip to Romania, a trip that you've made now for many years.
This is my 5th year that I've done this, working with the same group of people who are truly in their own ways saints and angels, because they're all volunteers who work with these. There are, of course, nonprofits there that are the backbone for this, but they're staffed primarily by people like we have here in the county who really want to serve, and they're looking for ways to help, and these programs are one way to do that. So I'm very proud of what they do and also to be associated with these programs.
So you're back in the country, you get a good perspective of what this country's all about, and we've seen it at a couple of polling places in the county this last week or two when it comes to people exercising their rights to vote and doing that in big numbers.
Yes, there is no fundamental right that's more important than the right to vote in this country, which is why in this year's budget, after listening to the Board of Elections, we added 5 more positions to the Board of Elections and Registrations to help them, do and provide the support that this county needs to have, so when people show up to vote, they can vote. And I know there were lines last week because we only have one office open, but we have 2 this week, and then we'll have voting on Saturday again this weekend. Mm-hmm. And then, as you told me, we'll have 11 more offices open next week, and then the week after, which is the big week, we'll have every single polling place open. So I believe this county has gone above and beyond what is required or expected of us to allow people to vote. And I also want to encourage people to remember absentee ballots. I may be a little bit late this year to do that, but in the future, as more people are becoming involved in the voting process, political process, you might want to look at the option we have here of sending in a ballot to vote by as an absentee.
And that number's been going up each year, those who choose to use the absentee ballots, because you don't need an excuse to do it. You can just do it if that's the preferred way you'd like to vote. And another thing we should emphasize to folks watching is that, if you go to the elections website, you can find the link to our GIS map that shows the waiting times at each particular precinct.
Right.
And the main precinct's been very busy, but Jim R. Miller Park at times has had no waiting. So
yeah, it's sort of there's some places that are just overloaded and some that have not as many. But the bottom line is that they're out there to vote. And I'm sorry, I just don't take an excuse why you can't vote. There's nothing more important than you involving yourself in our process of electing your officials. And we go through every single possible option to give you that opportunity to do that. I find it a great concern that so many people do not take advantage of this. But again, I also want to praise those people who do understand the fundamental responsibility of being involved in our country through the voting system. Your vote does make a difference, and my hat's off to Janine Evelyn and her team at the Board of Elections Registration to do all we can to get the open those facilities and make sure that your time there is quick as possible. Although I understand last week we did have a vendor during one of the lines providing food for people who were standing in line. So whoever that person was, my hat's off to them too.
Yeah, it was pizza, I understand.
Was it really?
Yeah, which would have been nice.
Well, maybe if we advertise pizza next week, we'll get a lot more people, then we'll really be in trouble.
Yeah, and real quick, we talked about this before, but this is a prime example of how a growing county puts more demand on the county to provide these services.
Absolutely right, and that was the argument that that the Board of Elections made last year during the budget process is that there are more people coming to the county, and although percentage-wise the numbers may not be going up, numerically wise, quantitative-wise, more people are coming because 20% of 500,000 is one number and 20% of a million is another number. So we have to make sure that at least if people are going to criticize for the long lines, it's not to say that when you did get the chance to vote, the machines worked, you were properly processed, and you got in and out and got your peach sticker.
Yeah. Tuesday night we had a big crowd at our county commission meeting, many of them wearing stickers about travel and tourism, and
Yes.
they were there for an important reason.
Right. Well, one of the concerns that I've had over the last 18 months was how to properly fund the police public safety provisions around the Battery. And my argument to the hotel owners was that even if SunTrust Stadium is not open, the Battery is open basically 365 days a year. And we have increasing development down there. We have hotels that are there. We have 5 Class A buildings. So the number of people that are there during the day and those who are gradually, increasingly living there, we have public safety requirements there regardless of what happens involved in the stadium or and events at the stadium. So I believe that we have a responsibility to fund a portion of our public safety responsibilities. But on the other hand, on those occasions when we do have events that are generated by the baseball games or by other functions that happen at the SunTrust Stadium, as we know, KSU is playing a football game there, I believe, next month. And the Braves have had some concerts there. So that brings in extra people. And the argument's always been the Braves should be paying for that. Well, I get that part. There's an argument on both sides. But what I've asked the hotel owners to do is that because these events are drawing more people that are staying in hotels, I believe it is in your best interest to help fund that public safety aspect, because when people come to these programs and they see they're going to be safe, then they'll stay and they'll spend more money, and that includes staying in hotel rooms. And I think that they had some concerns about that because their primary focus was trying to provide more resources to Cobb Tourism and Travel. As you know, Holly Quinn and her team there have been underfunded since day one. You look at what is provided by businesses in Cobb County and you look at similar markets in the region, it's not even a contest. In some cases, Holly and her team draw 10% of what some other cities are giving to their team. So if we're going to be bringing more businesses here, we need to have an arm that does that, and Cobb Tourism and Travel is one of the primary teams that does that. So we've been trying to find ways to provide them more funding, address the public safety issue, and take the burden off the taxpayer, and also meet the needs of the hotel owners, because in essence, they're the ones that are collecting the $3 fee, so they should have some say in how that money's spent. And fortunately, over the last year, we've had some really good negotiations, and the negotiations were culminated a couple weeks ago with Commissioner Cupid sitting down with the hotel owners, because Commissioner Cupid is the liaison for Cobb Tourism and Travel, and agreeing on this new formula that you'll see on your sheet. We'll take $600,000 off the taxpayers' back. That'll be now picked up by the $3 part of the $3 hotel motel tax. Holly Quinlan gets more funding. She'll be receiving $600,000 this year from that. And then the hotel owners will be funding the circulator bus, which is what they thought was a great idea to support their program. And we still continue to fund debt service. So as before, the hotel motel tax was only used to serve 2 programs. Now we're serving 4 programs, and the county gets the benefit of it. And this is the kind of program effort that I've been trying to put together here to slowly but surely, relieve the taxpayers of some burdens here that other sources can pick up. It's in conjunction with our other efforts here to sell county property, or in the case of this last week also, we lease some property. So we're starting to slowly bring in other revenue streams that reduce the amount of taxes that we're going to require from the taxpayer. And I'm happy to say that finally we have a RFP on the street now to lease the garages. Those garages that are next door to his, they drain us about $500,000 to $600,000 a year out of the general fund, because when those garages are built, we never properly addressed how we should fund those things, and shifted that burden to the taxpayer. And I just thought that was irresponsible. Most taxpayers don't use that garage. Most people don't know that we as county employees use that garage, but we pay for that service. It's not a free service. We pay for it out of our paycheck. But that is a business function, and it's a classic example of why governments should be very, very careful about getting involved in businesses. And that garage is a losing proposition, and we have to find a way to shift that responsibility to somebody else. And I'm very, very hopeful that some business out there will take this RFP and find a way to that we can lease it out to them, and they can find a way to make it profitable, because we sure have not done it, have been able to do that in any way, shape, or form.
Right, and we've been charging for a while for parking there, but it still hasn't made a difference.
It has, and I think it's interesting that last year when we proposed the fee structure for the garages, there was a lot of criticism about it, but the reality is, in a lot of ways, if you just want to come to the square for a couple hours, and go to a restaurant down here and do some shopping, it is cheaper to do that, all right, than it was in the former fee structure, because at that last year was $1 was $5 for no matter how long you park there. Now you can park there for up to 2 hours for $2. The first 30 minutes are free. All right. Only if you stay there longer than 2 hours, you have to pay more than the $2. So what's happened here is people have figured that out, and I believe that it's somewhere we know your car is going to be safe for $2. You come here, go to one of the magnificent restaurants or stores around here, and then get back in your car in 2 hours and get out of here, and you just save $3. So, we did the right thing in changing the fee structure. But the bottom line here is that it's still a burden on us, and we got to find a way to take that off our rolls and give it to somebody else.
Right, and then it'll be up to them to figure out how much the charges will be.
They will be there. Then it will be a business proposition, as everything else is around here, except for, of course, the Marietta City parking garage, where they have their own fee structure. But everybody else around here, they're starting to get in the same boat we are. They realize is that every one of these facilities, they have to be maintained, and you can't do it for free.
Right. Well, we're glad you're back safely, back in the swing of things, sort of, and we invite folks to subscribe to your newsletter,
Right.
the Commissioner's newsletters, and like our Facebook page if you want to stay on top of everything that is happening in Cobb County. So we will see you next week.
All right, let's get out there and vote.